Once upon a time, in a beautiful, hilly land, two great armies stood facing each other. On one side were the Israelites, and on the other side were the Philistines. They were enemies, and they were ready for a big battle. They stood on opposite hills with a wide valley separating them. For 40 long days they just stood there, watching and waiting. It was a time of great tension, and everyone was nervous. The air was thick with fear, because the Philistines had a secret weapon, a warrior so big and so strong that no one dared to fight him. This wasn't just any soldier, he was a giant. Every single morning and every single evening, this giant would walk out into the valley between the two camps. He would shout challenges at the Israelite army, his voice booming like thunder across the hills. "Send me a man to fight," he would roar. "If he wins, we will be your servants. But if I win, you will be our servants." His words echoed, and the Israelite soldiers would tremble in their boots. They were brave men, but the sight of this giant filled their hearts with a deep, cold dread. No one was brave enough to step forward and accept his challenge. This standoff continued day after day, and the fear in the Israelite camp grew stronger with each passing moment. The king of the Israelites, King Saul, was worried. He promised great riches and honor to any man who could defeat the giant, but still, no one volunteered. The soldiers would look at the giant, then look at each other and shake their heads. He was too big, too strong, and too scary. It seemed like an impossible fight, a battle that was already lost before it had even begun. The hope of the entire army was slowly fading away like the setting sun. But stories like this often have a hero, and sometimes that hero comes from the most unexpected place. This story is no different. Far away from the noise of the battlefield, a young boy was taking care of his father's sheep. He didn't look like a warrior. He wasn't big or strong like the soldiers in the army. He was just a shepherd boy, with a kind heart and a song on his lips. His name was David, and he had no idea that he was about to walk into this valley of fear and change everything for his people. Let's talk about this giant. His name was Goliath, and he was from a place called Gath. Goliath was enormous, taller than any man anyone had ever seen, maybe as tall as a doorway. He was covered from head to toe in heavy bronze armor that gleamed in the sun. He wore a massive helmet on his head and carried a giant shield. His spear was as thick as a weaver's beam, with a heavy iron point. When he walked, the ground seemed to shake beneath his feet. He was a champion, a professional warrior who had been fighting battles since he was just a boy. He was confident, loud, and very, very proud. Now let's meet our hero, David. David was the youngest of 8 brothers. While his older brothers were soldiers in King Saul's army, David's job was to stay home and look after his father's flock of sheep. He was a shepherd. He spent his days out in the fields, protecting the sheep from wild animals like lions and bears. He didn't have shiny armor or a big sword. His tools were simple, a staff to guide the sheep, and a sling to throw stones. He was young, but he was also strong, quick, and very brave from protecting his flock. He had a deep faith and believed he was never truly alone. The difference between David and Goliath could not have been greater. Goliath was a mountain of a man, covered in metal, who trusted in his own power and his mighty weapons. He looked down on everyone else. David was a young man of the earth, dressed in simple clothes, who trusted in something he could not see. He found his strength not in armor or swords, but in his courage, his skill with a sling, and his unwavering faith. One was a symbol of brute force and intimidation, while the other was a symbol of quiet confidence and inner strength. One day, David's father asked him to take some food to his brothers at the army camp. So David packed up some bread and cheese and made the journey to the valley. When he arrived, he heard Goliath's booming voice shouting his daily challenge. David saw the fear in the eyes of the soldiers, including his own brothers. He watched as the mighty Israelite army cowered before this one man. David couldn't understand it. Why was everyone so afraid? He saw not just a giant, but a man who was disrespecting his people and their beliefs. David went to King Saul and said something that shocked everyone who heard it. "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine," the young shepherd boy declared. "Your servant will go and fight him." King Saul looked at David, a boy who wasn't even old enough to be a soldier, and shook his head. "You can't fight him," the king said gently. "You are only a boy, and he has been a warrior from his youth." Saul saw a child standing before him, not a champion who could face a giant. It seemed like a foolish, even dangerous idea. But David did not back down. He explained to the king that he was stronger than he looked. "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep," David said. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it and rescued the sheep from its mouth. He told the king how he had fought these wild beasts with his bare hands to protect his flock. He believed that the same strength that helped him save his sheep would help him now. He wasn't afraid of Goliath because he had faced danger before and had always been protected. King Saul was moved by David's courage and his powerful faith. He saw a spark in the boy's eyes that he hadn't seen in any of his soldiers. "Go," the king said at last, "and may the Lord be with you." Then, Saul tried to help David by giving him his own armor to wear. He put a bronze helmet on David's head and gave him a coat of mail. But David was not used to such heavy things. He tried to walk around, but he could barely move. The armor was clumsy and unfamiliar. It wasn't his. David took off the king's armor. "I cannot go in these," he said, "because I am not used to them." He knew he couldn't win by trying to be someone he wasn't. He couldn't fight like Goliath or the other soldiers. He had to fight like David, the shepherd. So, he picked up his simple wooden staff, went down to the stream in the valley, and carefully chose 5 smooth stones. He put the stones in his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, he walked out into the valley to face the giant. He was ready. As David walked toward Goliath, the giant looked down at him and laughed. He was insulted that the Israelites would send a boy with a stick to fight him. "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" Goliath bellowed, his voice filled with scorn. He cursed David and promised to feed him to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. He saw a small, easy victory. He could not see the immense courage and faith that was walking towards him. He only saw a boy who looked weak and unprepared for a real fight. David was not shaken by the giant's angry words. He shouted back, his voice clear and strong, ringing with a confidence that came from deep within. "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin," David called out, "but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty." David declared that this battle was not about him or Goliath, but about something much bigger. He wanted to show everyone that you don't need swords or armor to win when you have faith on your side. His words were as powerful as any weapon. Then, the action began. As Goliath moved closer to attack, David ran quickly to meet him. He didn't hesitate. He reached into his bag, pulled out one of his smooth stones, and placed it in his sling. He began to swing the sling around and around faster and faster, building up speed. Then, at just the right moment, he let the stone fly. It shot through the air like an arrow, straight and true. The stone flew directly toward the giant, a tiny speck against a massive target. It was a perfect shot, guided by skill and faith. The stone struck Goliath right in the middle of his forehead, the one place where his armor did not protect him. The giant stumbled, his eyes wide with shock. Then he fell forward, crashing down onto the ground with a tremendous thud that shook the valley. The unbeatable champion was defeated by a single stone from a shepherd's sling. When the Philistine army saw their hero fall, they panicked and ran away. The Israelite soldiers, filled with new courage, cheered and chased after them. A young boy had shown them that it's not the size of the person, but the size of their spirit that truly matters. This is why we remember this story. It teaches us that courage, faith, and believing in yourself can help you face any giant in your own life.